So we've got musicians Sean Gaskell here from Asheville, North Carolina. He's going to be performing the Kora, a 21-string harp from West Africa. In his journey to mastery of the Kora, Gaskell studied under two musicians from the country of Gambia. He was inspired by professional choral player Kane Mathis of Seattle. Gaskell has also been featured at a number of music festivals in the United States, Gambia, and Senegal. So thanks for coming, and I hope you enjoy the performance.
Good evening. I'm going to do the educational portion of the program without the mic. Can y'all in the back hear me all right? Cool. So the Kora here is what I'm going to be sharing with you. And the Kora usually has 21 or 22 strings, sometimes as many as 26. It belongs to the Mandinka people living in the countries of Gambia, Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, a little bit of Burkina Faso even. And I learned how to play the Kora starting 11 years ago. And I was first introduced by Kane Mathis, my American teacher. He put me in touch with Moriba Kouyaté and Malamini Jabate in Gambia, West Africa. I went to study with them in 2008 and 2012 for a combined total of about 5 months over the two visits. And during those visits, I received anywhere between 6 and 10 hours of Kora lessons a day. So the songs that I'll play for you this evening are songs that I learned either from Malamini, Moriba, or Kane. And between the songs, I'll talk about the background and the history of the Kora and how I got involved. And right before the last song, I'll open up the floor for any questions that you might have. This first one that I'm going to play is one that I wrote, and it's called Somanda. The word Somanda is a Mandinka word which means morning. And I was inspired to write this over the course of many mornings about 3 years ago when I was getting up very early in the morning for work, which at that particular time in my life was to be doing trail maintenance and construction work in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is about an hour outside of my current home base in Asheville, North Carolina. I'll go ahead and launch right into another one here. This is a traditional song from Gambia called Alalake. This comes from maybe 300 years ago or so, and it means God has done it. Alalake. Thank you very much. So the Kora here, there's a few things that they use to build it, and I'm going to talk about those. Down at the bottom here, we have a calabash, which is a gourd, and it grows in the ground the same way that a pumpkin does. So to use it, they cut it in half, and they dry it in the sun for a couple of weeks after taking everything out of it. And then they'll stretch a cow skin over the open half, and they'll nail it to the back with upholstery tacks. 3 holes are then cut into the calabash. 2 of those are so that the neck that I'm holding onto can slide all the way through the calabash. And you might be able to see the bottom of it down here. And the 3rd hole is cut up top so that the sound can come out. And everything is held together by tension both up top here and down below. So up top, each of the strings are wrapped around these rings of cowhide known as conso. The conso come from the same hide as the one that's stretched over the calabash. So once this gets nailed on, they take a knife and they cut off. They go around the upholstery tacks to cut off whatever's left. And they'll cut the strips about that long by no more than 1 inch wide. They'll wrap each of them around the neck, let them dry in the sun for a couple of weeks, and then you could put each of the strings on. And you start by going down here where there's this iron ring. So you have to get that through the bottom of the neck. You can use a drill. Most of the Kora makers that I knew in Gambia did not own one. So what they would do is they would heat the ring up in an open fire for 10, 15 minutes at a time to get it really nice and hot. Then they'd put a glove on one hand and they'd hold it up against the wood while they'd take a hammer with the other and they'll start pounding it down into the wood so they can chip out little bits of the wood bit by bit. And they'll need to repeat the process of heating the ring and hammering maybe 10 times until it's all the way through the wood. At that point, they'll do one of 2 things to secure the ring there. And again, this is before all the strings are in place. They'll either take some nylon rope, like they did on this one. They'll wrap it around the back of the neck and also through the loop of the ring. Or they might take the ring to a metalsmith who would then cut out like a spiral thread pattern on the end. And then you would put a washer around the straight part of the ring and then screw a nut on to it. So then you put the anchor strings around the ring down here, and then you tie the plucking strings off to the anchor strings. So each string has a conso. They get wrapped around it about 4 or 5 times and then tied off. And then to tune the conso, to tune the strings with the conso, I should say, if you want to tune the pitch higher, you would have to move each of the conso up the neck, or vice versa. If you want to lower the pitch, you would have to bring them down. All the tension of these conso rest on the back of the neck, so you have to use your thumbs to push up on the front part to release that tension in the back, which then allow you to move them a little bit more freely. So this traditional Kora from Gambia is a bit different than the one that you see me playing. This one was built here in the States in 2011 by an elk farmer living in rural southern Oregon. So he used an elk skin to go over the calabash. And the wood is different, the way it's tuned, the types of strings that are used, those are all different. So these are harp strings here, whereas the traditional Kora used fishing line. They've been doing so since the 1920s, and before that they used antelope hide. I've never actually heard an antelope hide Kora being played. Supposedly there's only still one that exists, and it's in the Royal Museum of London in England, and they've dated it back to like 1810 or something like that. So there's that. The wood on this Kora is paduk for the neck, which is a southern African hardwood. The tuning pegs, handlebars, the bridge, and the crosspiece are all Honduras mahogany, whereas all the wood that you see on the traditional Kora is kano, which is a tree that's native to the region where the Kora is from. And you can see the tuning pegs here instead of the conso, and that's the other big difference. So it's a lot easier to tune. So that's the Kora. I'll play another song. I'm going to play another one that I wrote. This is actually the first time I've performed this one. So this one's called Halfway House. And I wrote this song at a place called Halfway House, which exists in the Olympic National Park on the west side. And I was here in 2015. I worked trail maintenance for quite a few years. And in 2015, I came back to work another season after finding out that my mom had very little time to live. And this was a song that I wrote at that camp, and it kind of comes from all of the experiences coming up around that time. Halfway House. Thank you. The Kora belongs to people in Mandinka society known as griots, spelled Griots. And the griots are historians. It's their cultural responsibility to tell people about their history, dating back all the way to the mid-13th century, almost 800 years ago. In the Kora, it's most culturally significant because the griots use it as a medium to tell about their history through song. So within the traditional repertoire, you'll hear a lot of songs that are named after people who helped fight battles to expand the empire from its origins in Mali into Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Burkina Faso. There are songs about political leaders from the highest ranks, like presidents, all the way down to city leaders, village leaders. And aside from the traditional repertoire, people write their own songs. So there's sort of like this folk element, if you will. And people write songs for the same reasons that singer-songwriters like Bob Dylan do. So it all exists on the Kora. When I was in Gambia, I saw the Kora played at 3 types of events for the most part. 2 were very formal and 1 was very casual. The casual event might happen once or twice a month inside of the griot family's home. You would usually see more than just a Kora being played. In fact, you'd probably see 2 or 3, if not more. You might see it played alongside of one of the other 2 native Mandinka instruments, both of which are older than the Kora historically. One's the ngoni, which is a stringed instrument that you play more like you would a guitar. You strum the strings and you hold them down the neck with the other hand. The Kora, you're just using the thumbs and index fingers, so no more, no less, just those 4. The third and oldest instrument of the trio is the balafon, which is a wooden xylophone that you play with 1 mallet in each hand. Traditionally, men would be the ones to play the musical instruments. Within the last 15 or 20 years, you're starting to see more women play. There's one even within the family that I studied with that was starting to play. So there's a bit less cultural resistance nowadays. And similarly, you're seeing people from non-griot families play these instruments, which also didn't used to happen as much. The 2 more formal events that I saw the Kora at were weddings and naming ceremonies. Naming ceremonies would happen exactly 1 week after a child was born. It didn't matter if it was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. The ceremony would always be the following Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever that day was. It was a 3-part ceremony in which the first part was the naming of the child, the second part was the feast, and the third part was the music. The naming segment would take place inside of the home where the mother had grown up. She may be living with her husband's extended family, but it might be the other way around too. The naming might take an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. That section would be led by a griot who is usually on a bullhorn, and he'd be saying praise for the baby, for the family. Sometimes there would be another griot standing right next to him telling him what to say through the bullhorn. And other times this person would walk around the audience and collect cash donations to then give to the parents of the child to help support them. So the naming itself was my sense was that it was sort of a communal process because people spoke up and kind of gave their ideas as to what the child's name would be. And then once the name was announced over the bullhorn, that was final. And there was no further discussion. And then once it was determined, the feast would take place. They would usually cook up a goat that day, serve it with rice and vegetables, and then the music would take place. The way that music was presented at these naming ceremonies was very similar to the way you would see it played at weddings. And that's because the Kora was, well, first off, the music was sort of like the after party. And the Kora would be featured as the lead instrument of what you and I might see as more of a modern band setup, because it would be accompanied by electric guitars, electric bass, like a drum set that you might see in a jazz band or a rock band, electric keyboards even. And all of these, with the exception of the drums, would be plugged into this huge 64-channel soundboard. And then that would get plugged into 2 huge amplifiers, which were this wide by taller than me. And the ambiance of these events had more of the feeling of a rock concert. And people would get up and dance for them. Now, there were 4 members within the family that I stayed with in Gambia that were part of a band with 4 members from the neighboring family, which is also a griot family. Together, the 8 of them made, I would say, over 90% of the income for both extended families, which was anywhere between 60 and 70 people in number. And the way that they would get paid would be because there's a 5-gallon tub that would sit out in front of the band. And it would be empty at the start of the night, and it would usually be overflowing by the end. And the band had to like engage the audience kind of a certain way in order to encourage them to come up and show their support. And the way that you would see that happen is the band at some point would play a traditional song that may have been dedicated to someone who was heroic and passed away maybe 400 or 500 years ago. you just hear the melody for a good 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, these songs would go on for maybe 20 or 30 minutes in some cases. And the lead Kora player at some point, who had the Kora strapped to him, he'd be standing with the Kora out like this, and he'd have a guitar strap going around his back. So he'd step up to the microphone right at the front of the stage, and he would start singing praise for whoever that song was about. And then he might withdraw for a while, and you would just hear the melody again. And then when he came back up to start singing, you would see 4 or 5 people from the audience stand up, and they would walk towards the band, and they would put some money into the tub, and they might dance. Moribra, my teacher, brought it to my attention that these people coming up were probably direct descendants of that very person who the song was about, who had passed away so long ago. And they were coming up to show their respect because the Kora player might know the fact that they're related, or it might even be a blind call out. He may be saying, all right, here's X, Y, and Z reason why the Jones family was so great. Like, here is exactly what they did. He might talk about it for 5 or 10 minutes while he's playing. And these people who are related to the Joneses, or whoever it was, would come up and they would pay. And that is because people value their history so much. Like, it doesn't have to be a musical event for an exchange like that to take place. It can be in the Griot family's home. It can be in the person's home who he's talking about or talking to. It could even be passing on the street, literally. Anytime a griot praises you for your family's past, people feel like it's their responsibility or even obligation to then pay them. And they feel they should be able to make their living because of that. For being the history keepers, it means a great deal to them. So you'd see those people who initially came up, they'd go back out into the audience, and a little while later, those same people might bring up another 10 or 15. And then from that point, there would just be a streamline of people coming up for the rest of the evening. And by the end, which sometimes wasn't until 1 or 2 in the morning, you might have the whole audience of 200 to 300 people up and dancing, of all ages too. Like, it wasn't just the youth staying up this late, it was like the whole crowd. So it's a bit different than what you're getting to experience tonight. So I'll go ahead and launch into another song. This one's called Mali Sajo. This is a folk story coming from the southwest region of Mali, known as Bafulabe. The word Mali is the country that it comes from. The word Sajo is the word for hippopotamus. They say that this is a tragic love story of a woman who fell in love with a hippopotamus. Check, 1, 2. Okay. All right, we're gonna get you all involved in this one. This one's called Tira Makan, and it's named after Tira Makan Traore. He was a general in the army of Sundiata Keita back in the mid-13th century, and it's Sundiata who was credited with founding the Mandinka Empire back then. So Tira Makan served two very important roles for Sundiata. He helped to coordinate the efforts for some of the most important battles to take place, which eventually moved the Mandinka Empire forward out of Mali. And he also fought in them. So the words to this song, they literally mean, the enemy tried to pierce Tira Makan with a sword, but they did not succeed.
You're talking in my answer. I'm from Guinea, West Africa. I am Keita.
Abaraka. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Oh, Abaraka. So Sundiata and Tira Makan, they were both very close. So the words to this song, as Morba taught it to me, the words basically mean the enemy tried to pierce Tira Makan with a sword, but they did not succeed. And so that's what we're all going to sing about. So I'm going to sing a call line, and then you're going to be coming in with a response line. And this is actually sung in Bambara, if I'm not mistaken. The last song, and most of the songs for that matter, are sung in Mandinka. So I want you to say 3 words in Bambara, and they basically mean the enemy was not successful at piercing Tira Makan. So please say after me, Susa, Rejo, Tira Makan. Susa, Rejo, Tira Makan. Good. So to get the feeling of the call and response, I'm going to sing that to you, and I'd like you to sing it back to me. So I'll guide you in. It goes, Susare jo tira makan. Your turn. Susare jo tira makan. Susa re jo tira makan. Your turn.
Susa re jo tira makan.
Very nice. Susa re jo tira makan. Again.
Susa re jo tira makan.
Very good. So now I'm going to sing a couple of different lines. So one kind of means the enemy, they tried to pierce Tiramakan with a sword, and you're coming in with Susa Rejo Tiramakan. Like they didn't succeed. And I'm going to say like the mother and father of Tiramakan, Ifa Tiramakan, Iba Tiramakan. They give him their support and protection while he's in battle. And you'll just be saying the same thing each and every time. So let's try it. Here we go. And it'll go a little faster during the song too. So it'll go like Amuru yebang tira makan, susare jo tira makan, keleke muru yebang tira makan, susare jo tira makan, iba tira makan, ifa tira makan, susare jo tira makan, iba tira makan, ifa tira makan, susare jo tira makan. Very good. All right. We'll do it with the Kora next for Tira Makan. Thank you all for singing too. That was great. That was awesome. I first got introduced to the Kora 11 years ago, and I literally stumbled across it because my dad invited me to a folk festival in my hometown of Olympia, Washington. It was a smaller scale folk festival called the World Sacred Music Festival, which actually doesn't run anymore. Yeah. And that's where I first saw Kane Mathis perform. And I was blown out of the water. It was like this big sanctuary, and I remember laying on my back, just eyes closed, back against the seat, and just like being mesmerized. And it was that moment in 2006 that I said, I'm gonna learn how to play the Kora. And so I talked with Kane a little bit at the show, and then even more extensively at the Northwest Folklife Festival in Seattle a couple weeks later. And so over those two interactions, I figured out that he was willing to teach me at his home in Seattle. So once I figured that out, that was actually the easiest of my two tasks that night. The second and far more challenging task was actually finding a Kora. You can't just get it at a music store, as you might be able to imagine. So Kane put me in touch with a friend of his in Dallas, Texas, who had just gotten back. The friend in Dallas, Texas knew of a guy in Maine who had just gotten back from Gambia, and he might have an extra Kora that he could part with. So I called him up very hopeful, and I found out that he did. And so I bought it from him, and he packaged it up in foam and bubble wrap and tape and put it on a Greyhound passenger bus going from Maine all the way to Olympia, Washington. And it took about, this would have actually been in February of 16, so it took a long time to get there because there was like a snowstorm in Ohio or something like that. So I picked it up at the other end, and I started taking lessons with Kane. I went up maybe once a month, once every 2 months for a year and a half. And that led up to my first trip to Gambia, which was in January of 2008. Up to that time, I had taken a couple of years off of school, but I wanted to go finish up at the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. And through there, I was able to get a study contract to go to Gambia for 3.5 months and receive full credit. And so I flew in, and Moriba, my teacher, picked me up and took me to the compound. And he not only taught me how to play Kora, he essentially treated me like a brother or a son. The level of hospitality that I experienced at that point was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And it's because of Moriba and Malamini that I'm able to share with you what I am this evening. So I hope you've enjoyed it. We've come down to the last song for the evening, so I wanted to go ahead and open up the floor for any questions that you might have. Yeah?
Did you get a chance to meet the legendary Kora player, T.O.U., and the airline?
I did not, but I'm hoping to go to Mali in February. So, yeah, I'm hoping to meet him when I go over. So, yeah. Yeah.
So I'd be interested in hearing what the traditional Kora sounds like.
It's really out of tune right now, but it's very harp-like in nature. Well, this actually I would say maybe a little less so than the other one, but so it's got a bit more of a dampened sound overall. So yeah, but yeah.
How are your strings tuned? What are they?
The tuning of the instrument. It's in the same 7-pitch diatonic scale as most Western instruments. So given that, you can pretty much be in any tuning that you want.
So how many? Do you have like, octave?
Yeah, there's octaves. And I mean, I'm technically playing a lot of the songs in F major. So whatever dominant key that you're in is going to have 4 strings, and then most of the rest of the other 6 pitches are going to have 3 or some, and 2 in some cases. So, yeah.
What is your left hand related to your right hand? Are they different?
Yeah. So the construction of the instrument, the thumbs are usually playing the bass notes in the mid range, and the index fingers are playing the higher strings. So the higher strings are further away from the musician, and the bass notes are closer to the musician. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, for me, I want to sing it with you.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know Kelly
Yeah,
Fa?
great job.
Do you know Kelly Fa?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll sing. We'll do Kelly Fa as the last song. It's from Gambia.
Oh, I'm from Guinea.
Oh, okay.
I speak Malinke.
Do you know Kasumamon?
Kasumamba.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to do that one? All right. We know which
Okay,
song we're.
now I want to, because they have the feeling for Turamakan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do Turamakan for them and then they take the refund for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You teach them for Turamakan and then we can play that for them.
Sure. Yeah.
After that, we play Malisa Jo.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Can I take a couple more questions from the audience first? Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of things. You identified the four fingers you're playing it with. At any one time, are you able to tell how many strings are actually we're hearing?
Well, no more than 4 at one time. So it's usually 3, though, I would say. Yeah, it's variant between 1, 2, 3, and 4. So.
And the follow-up to that is, you talked about the rock band. Have you ever, are there CDs available where you might have, people might have played with smaller percussive instruments like a doo-doo or
Yeah, there's some traditional drums from the region, like the band, the family band, as I call it. They had like what's called seruba or tengtengo, sometimes like a 3-part drum that the Wolof play. Occasionally you would see a djembe, which is a hand drum from the region, but it's not a Mandinka drum. So yeah, you saw those quite a bit. So yeah.
Do you find, or did you find that music in each country, they played the same music the same way, or did they play it differently?
Totally differently. Yeah, every region's a bit different. Like you can literally hear one song played such and such way, and you might go another 15 minutes down the road, and it's going to be played completely differently. So, and the way that I was taught, like he would teach me a basic melody, but he would encourage me to essentially do my own thing with the melody. So they really encourage everyone to just kind of do their own thing with it as far as the improvisation. Yeah. Anybody else?
How many Kora players do you think there are in the United States?
Not a whole lot. Maybe like 50 to 100, somewhere in that range, maybe more. So yeah, it's a pretty small network. Yeah. But, yeah.
You mentioned Washington and North Carolina. How did you come to be in Missoula?
I'm on tour. So I started in western Iowa, and I'm going all the way to Washington State doing libraries. So, yeah. Yeah. One more question, and we'll do the last 2 songs. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a 5-gallon jug here?
I do not. But if you want my CD, this is a free program. If you want my CD, they're $10. They're on the briefcase on the back table that you all passed coming in. If you want to pay with cash or check, you can just walk back to the briefcase, and there is a small little plastic tub next to the briefcase. I can take credit card too. If you need to pay that way, come see me, and I can swipe your card onto my phone. I also have an email list, which looks like I might not have put out. But I'll do that, and I use the list specifically to let people know the next time that I'm passing through the area. That's it. Thank you so much. Yeah. So if you sign up for that, I'll let you know the next time that I'm in town. So thanks so much for coming. We're going to wrap up with a couple of songs. And Kasumaba. Do you want to tell them about the history of this song?
I'm not very well in English.
Okay. So as far as, what Moriba, my teacher, told me about this song is that Kasumaman, as he calls it, Kasumamba. As Moriba tells me, this is like the more modern version of a song called Apollo.
Apollo.
Yeah, which is from Guinea.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do Kasumamba.
Kasumamba. Here we go.
Yeah.
Voice. I have voice.
cool.
You do the refrain and then
Yeah,
I go,
yeah. Sweet. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming out.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to come up and chat as I'm packing up here. Otherwise, I hope to meet you all whenever again that may be. So, thank you so much.